Hey, this is Bryce Johnson from Expedition Bigfoot. You're listening to the Paranomaly Zone.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
A ghostly apparition in the dark of night.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Hey there, ponderers of the paranormal and fans of true crime podcast content. This is the Paranomaly Zone, but you knew that already because you clicked on the big Paranomaly Zone logo, and this is a pretty special episode. This episode right here was recorded a month and a half ago exclusively for the Paranomaly Zone Patreon page, but we wanted to give another sample of the kind of wicked goodness that we have going on at the Patreon page, and Mike is just chomping at the bit to jump in here and talk about this episode. I know
I'm still having nightmares about it.
I was going to say this one. This was disturbing.
Yes, it's true crime, but I'm starting to learn that all true crime is sick and twisted. Like they go together.
They kind of fit, don't they? Yeah, we're talking. This episode I titled simply "The Crawl Space," and yeah, you probably figured out why.
Deservedly so.
You probably figured out why we called it that. Yeah, we're talking about John Wayne Gacy, the, as Mike said, absolutely sick and twisted, perverse, disgusting mind from the killer clown himself, Mr. John Wayne Gacy. And I want to make this clear, is that we're not, particularly for this episode we recorded a while back for the Patreon page, we're not sitting there breaking any new ground as far as our, putting forth our own, I guess, our own takes, our own theories as to what was going on in that guy's mind. We really simply focused on the idea of storing dead bodies in your crawl space, victims that you killed yourself. Just what is going on in that psychotic mind there. It was a dive into the atrociously dark and depraved.
He did this with not caring about the stench that he must have known was going to be coming up. I mean, his wife, for crying out loud, he didn't care if she was going to smell it because she obviously did.
She did, yeah.
and trying to figure, what's that smell? And he said, well, it must be like rats in the basement or the crawl space or whatever.
Uh-huh. Well, it was. I remember that it just shows you how his mind works and just how he could compartmentalize stuff, and he could put forth these nonsensical answers. And they came to the assumption that it was, or she came to the assumption that it was several dead rats or dead mice in their crawl space. And John Wayne Gacy decides to solve the problem of already dead rats or mice. He says he's going to put mouse traps down there then. Okay, yeah. How what? Thanks, John. Lots of help there, bub. But yeah, this one was
the mind of a mass murderer sicko.
Not good. But we wanted to get this episode out to the masses, so to speak. It's been sitting there festering on the Patreon page for a while.
Yeah.
Our Patreons seem to enjoy it quite a bit. As sick and gruesome as it is, and as weird as it sounds, we enjoyed recording it. But man, we felt like we had to shower immediately afterwards.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so, I had to wipe down with lye.
Oh, God, don't even say that. Oh, man alive.
Let it sit on my body for like an hour and then try and rinse it off.
What a sight that is. Come on, everybody. Just envision that right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Parts of me fell off.
It did. Yeah, I didn't need to hear that either. So anyhow, we wanted to get this out there. We wanted to record a brief little intro. So from what you hear from now on will be from about a month and a half ago. So you're kind of essentially time traveling, which is kind of weird and odd.
It's a big time travel.
So we hope you guys enjoy this. Again, this is just a sample of some of the awesome stuff that we have brewing on our Patreon page. Not all of it true crime, though, but 99% of it is all paranormal and cryptid based. and alien base. So if you're into all that weird goodness, head on over to the Patreon page. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. You won't regret it. All right. Without any further ado, here we go. Say goodbye to John Wayne
Prepare
Gacy.
to be chilled and try and peace out.
Try and peace out. Say goodbye to John Wayne Gacy, Mike. Please say just put him away. Put him out of our minds.
Yes.
Hey there, ponderers of the paranormal and Patreon pals. You know where we are. This is the Paranormally Zone. How you doing, Mike? It's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm looking pretty pasty white on there.
Are you? Well, this isn't the busy video episode, so you don't have to worry.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's all right. It's just what I am. It's pre-summer.
It is.
So it won't get any better as we get into summer anyway, so no big deal.
Speaking of that, though, man, it's been a quick disappearance of all of our snow here, and the weather that has been just gorgeous the last couple days, and it's supposed to continue. And I have got cabin fever so bad.
Yep, 60s, and then I think Saturday, did I see we're supposed to be like 69 here?
Man, nice.
And there are people like in deep south that are like, "Oh my God, I'd be wearing a sweater."
Right, I know.
Well, we'll be wearing shorts. And a cut-off T-shirt where my belly shows.
And a pink thong, just for the hell of it.
I'll be laying in a kiddie pool with a Diet Coke.
There you with your Diet Coke. I was hoping you'd think of something a little more exotic or something.
A
lemonade or
pina
something.
colada.
There you go.
With an umbrella. How's that?
That's better. Resting on your belly, of course, as you're relaxing.
Or sex on the beach with a long twisty straw.
That works too. Whatever floats your boat, man. But like I texted you earlier today, though, I said, man, it's getting darn near ghost hunting weather.
Yes. Yeah, my body's getting better for it. My back is doing so much better. I mean, it's never going to be 100%, but it's good. I mean, it's still getting better.
Yeah.
So I'll be ready.
Perfect.
Got that white stone battlefield we got to hit pretty soon.
Absolutely.
Where so many people were massacred. It's got to be some activity there.
Got to be some energy there somehow. If it's only residual, but still, that's
either
you never know. So are you home alone, or is Mary there with you at the
Mary
time?
is here. She
okay, that's
is
what I saw.
not going to be working at all until she starts her new job on Monday.
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, congratulations. So,
she did get that. She will be working in housekeeping at another nursing home. Just much closer to home and better benefits and
Well, tell her congratulations from me to her.
Yes, absolutely.
I was just curious because I saw shadows moving on your wall behind you, and I was like, is that the dog or is that Mary?
Could be the dog too. The dog is kind of, she's laying there now.
Yeah. Okay.
But the black shadow of a dog that she is anyway.
Yeah, that is true. So, Mike, let's talk about it very briefly. Let's get to the nitty gritty of something that really cool that we did this last Monday as our patrons.
Yeah, it was way more than cool.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it on the flagship podcast as well. So maybe we'll dive into it a little bit more then. But briefly, how did that go, Mike? How do you feel about our?
Oh, it went awesome. Patrick and I actually sounded like we knew what we were talking about, and by the way, Chris Jericho I think he had a good time too.
Yeah, besides the ice pack he had on his shoulder during
he was icing his arm there, yeah. He must have been, and it looked like he may have been on his tour bus, so...
Yes, I think he's
probably out there beating up people, and...
Well, they're on tour right now, his band is. His band
is, yeah. But
so, maybe he's pretty active on stage, so maybe he accidentally hurt
extremely. Well, and then went right from doing a concert to actually wrestling, and doing matches, because at one time he... actually left his Fozzy makeup on and went right into wrestling. You remember that?
I guess I don't remember that particularly.
Oh, well, whatever.
Whatever. I thought you were talking about just not like this recent tour. That's what.
Oh, no. No, but what a great guy, though. I mean, he's so easy to talk to and fun to talk to, and he's such a huge personality and.
Exactly. Just a personality that he just exudes, confidence. And the thing is, though, he was genuinely interested in listening.
He was.
We had a conversation, and he.
A very great conversation. I think it went a lot better than the first time we spent with him.
I agree.
You know, like we were in our own atmosphere, like you know, our own settings at home, and you know, doing it over the computer and everything. But and he did say, let us, you know, he said, come up with another good topic and let's do it again.
I know that's
So-
awesome. You know, as long as you know, as long as you send him ideas that are interesting, you know, he's open to it, and so it's it's Mike. Run it by me again. What the hell he said? I still didn't quite grasp it, even after you explained it to me a second time. What did he talk about? He has like a group of people who.
Well, the way he said it sounded like he has people that send him ideas for shows, and so it was kind of like the way I took it. It's like, well, you know, so you know, let's just send him.
I still don't get it. I don't
send
get
him
it.
stuff that we can do on a show. I mean,
see, I just keep thinking of like when he's. I for some reason I can't wrap my mind around what he meant by that. It's like he has like a creative group or something, and they all
just people. I mean, not like it's not like
I'm overthinking.
He's chosen, you know, like a number of people to be, you know, well, get a hold of me. We'll do a podcast, and you know, give me some ideas. You know, it's I think there's just people that do that, and kind of like how we did it with him, with sending him an idea, and he said, let's do it.
You know, and I have to confess, I won't reveal this on the flagship podcast. I'll save this for our patrons here, our Patreon Paranormal family. Our appearance, this one came about. I mean, I've been in touch with him since our first appearance, you know,
right,
on and off, not often, you know, but if I've been sending him like ideas, if anything ever pops in my brain. Most 99%, he's like, yeah, that sounds great. You know, what do you know about that? Can you do an hour on it? And then things just kind of fade away,
right,
and nothing ever comes of it. But it was 2 Saturdays ago. I was flying high because my lovely, wonderful Minnesota Timberwolves just won this awesomely important playoff game, which they ended up losing the series anyways. But anyways, it was a really, really exciting game that they won, and I was flying high, and yeah, I had some adult beverages, and after midnight, I sent yet another feeling kind of good message to Jericho, because this was after we had recorded our own The Haunting of Ted Bundy episode, and it was a very short and sweet. Posse, hush up. I have to tell my dog to hush up, for crying out loud. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. I just sent him a quick message. I said, you know, The Haunting of Ted Bundy. You know, I can't remember exactly what I said, but bizarre, creepy, and fascinating at the same time. Yada yada, something along those lines. And he wrote back. He goes, "Wow, what do you guys know about that?" And I gave him a brief summary, and he goes like, "Man, let's talk about. Can you do an hour?" And that's when it started. And then bam, bam, bam. Yeah. 9 days later, there we were talking to him. So.
Yeah. But remember from a long time ago, we talked about that. You doing drunk texts to Jericho. Jericho,
they're not.
Be careful.
I know. I'm very careful, Mike. I didn't say anything stupid, obviously.
I know you didn't.
He responded to what I said.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it came about pretty quick.
Yeah. So okay, Hey, Mike. Talk amongst yourself to our listeners, because I have to stand up and let my dogs out because they're whining. They need to go
amongst ourselves.
So just say something neat to the listeners for a little bit.
Something neat. Okay. Well, we do, as people have seen probably on our promos for tonight's episode, it's going to be another deep dive in the dark and sick and twisted.
Okay, what
John Gain Macy.
What the hell did you
John
say?
Wayne Gacy.
Wow.
The John Gain Macy.
Oh, the Juan Gain JC. I know him.
The John Wayne Gacy. Yeah, when you were sitting down and started talking, and you just threw me way off.
I'm sorry, but
today is going to be an awesome.
So, would you ever be able to, in case of emergency, would you ever be able to host an episode on your own, Mike? Would you ever be able to cover 45 minutes on your own?
Oh, yeah, I think I could.
Okay, maybe I should do
I just have to do a little bit more prep for it.
You want to do that this weekend?
No.
Okay. No. I don't want you to either. It'll be good. It'll be fine.
Not unless you got into a very bad chainsaw accident
Oh,
and
wow. Why that's specific?
lost one of your arms or something, and you just couldn't make it.
Why does it have to specifically be a chainsaw incident?
Well,
Interesting.
well, I don't know.
Okay.
It could be a Bowie knife.
Well, okay. Or a David Bowie knife, as my mom still pronounces his last name.
You went to the David Bowie concert, huh?
Yeah. But we do want to
Mom.
mention that if there were people that were, on our Patreon that are so desperately waiting for our next celebrity episode.
Oh yeah. We have to reschedule Stormy Daniels' interview.
Yeah.
We were going to talk with her tomorrow, actually. I had scheduled this back in February with Stormy, and she seemed excited.
And she was
about
excited
it.
about doing it.
She was, and then I reached out to her about 10 days ago just to double check, say, hey, are we still good to go? Hadn't heard from her, so I wrote back again last night, and I got a fairly immediate response. She's like, all apologies, I'm sorry, we're going to have to reschedule because I'm filming a TV show on location that day. So
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that's whatever. That's fine. That's absolutely cool. We'll reschedule.
Yeah, and you texted that to me, and I was like, who the hell does she think she is?
Yeah, right.
What is more important?
Her-
And obviously, I will answer for her. Filming on location, doing a TV show.
Right.
is
Yeah. Her
much more
living,
important.
her
Yes.
supporting herself or
Yeah.
talking to us.
For free.
I was trying to think of a kind of rude name to call ourselves, but I didn't want to say anything too
Yeah,
specific.
but rescheduling will be done, and
Yeah.
we'll very much look forward to talking to her.
So, Mike, I think I heard you say about you were talking about Juan Gain Macy and all that good stuff. Yeah. After just talking about the haunting of Ted Bundy with Mr. Jericho, and I was, as I told Mike on Monday, I was like, I'm ready to expunge Bundy from my mind. You know, it'll never happen because I know oh my God, I sound way too. I was going to sound way too arrogant, but I have too much Bundy on my brain, anyways. When it comes
It's like peanut butter on the roof of a dog's mouth.
no, so it's like
It's like Bundy on the skull cap. Just can't
but you know
scrape
what?
it off.
You know what though? Let's just continue on with some Sick and Twisted. And you know what? When it comes to Sick and Twisted, right there at the top is Mr. John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
This title is simply called The Crawl Space because I do want to I want to focus on that. I mean, we'll hit some of the sad facts about it, but chances are you're aware of, you know, for lack of a better term, the numbers, you know, and the locale and the scenery and the situation. But I just want to talk about that crawl space, man, and just
And
the
there's
psychology.
not a whole lot of paranormal.
Well, no, absolutely
that is
not.
associated with this, but
Hey, but you did say that there was something that you thought was related.
I found something where, you know, it's psychics talking, you know, and we don't know these psychics. We don't know what the story of it is, but there is a theater in Illinois that is,
You said a theater?
a movie theater,
Okay.
that is in Illinois that supposedly there's a spirit that haunts the place. And I believe it was psychics that said, yes, he does go by the name of John.
Okay.
And this spirit appears as a clown, a very leering kind of clown that very freaky. And you know why he would be in this theater, they haven't come up with anything about that. But it seems that it's a possibility that John Wayne Gacy's ghost, dressed as a clown, haunts this theater.
Where is the
leering at people?
Where is the theater located? Do you know that off the top of your head?
I don't know. It's just that I just have Illinois. It could
Illinois.
very well be in Chicago where a lot, you know,
Sure.
all this, you know.
Well, as we talked about with the haunting of Bundy, you know, we dove into, you know, the idea of, you know, ghosts aren't exactly in the same dimension as us, pals. You know, they're not
Right.
they're not locked in one location. It doesn't have to make sense as to why they're at one particular spot. You know, during multiple multiple occasions, different times. But man, John Wayne Gacy, Mike, you have memories. If I recall correctly, we've talked about this briefly before. You have memories of seeing this all go down on TV, of people bringing those bodies out of the house. when you were watching them on television as a fairly younger man?
No, that was actually the Amityville occurrence.
That was the Amityville one? Are you sure?
Yeah. I remember seeing that on the news when that first happened.
Damn it. Okay, I could have swore you said that it was the John Wayne Gacy one.
You know, and there's no reason why I couldn't have. I mean, he was arrested in 78.
Forget
I
said that.
No, that's okay. I mean,
totally forget it. I'm going to edit this whole episode now.
Oh no,
because now I'm feeling dumb.
No need.
No need. Okay, well, let me rephrase that. Mike, you have absolutely no recollection of watching this on television. Recollection
not right off the top of my head. I don't. Okay. But 1978, I was well old enough to. I don't know why I don't recall it because, I hated watching the news at that time.
Well, that's true.
I didn't catch it on the news. My dad always watched news faithfully, but
you know what, Mike? That if anything, that's proof positive that we really do just go off the top of our heads. So 90% of this stuff.
Yeah.
So that was.
I very distinctly remember in the 70s when all of the Tylenol had to be taken off the shelves because somebody was taking them and opening up the capsules and putting cyanide in the capsules and putting them back on the shelves.
Good Lord Almighty.
That was quite an event.
I've never even heard of that. Was that person ever apprehended?
That's actually what started the whole safety sealed bottles.
Oh, I suppose. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And safety caps and everything. Because before that, you could go to a store, take a bottle of Tylenol, open it up and shake them around and look at them in there.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
So,
I still have problems with those safety caps. They're a struggle every now and then. It's like, they work, damn it. They sure work. Well, okay, let me think of another way to start it off here with a question to you, Mike. How do you feel about the whole clown persona when it comes to Mr. John Wayne Gacy? Is that, long-time listeners, ding, 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 know how you feel about clowns. Yep, there it is. Ding, ding, very, very faint, very, very faint, dingy bell. We all know how you feel about clowns, but how does Pogo, as he went by, or Patches?
Yes, Pogo or Patches. I think one of them was one of those personas. It was more of a kind of a lower key, grumpier clown than the other one.
How does Pogo, does that, for you personally, does that add to the John Wayne mystique? I mean, obviously it does, but I should say
it doesn't a whole lot, actually. I mean, I can't stand it because, but I don't like it. But, when I see that, and doing research for this, of course, just like the Bundy, I could close my eyes and see this face, and it's like when I look at a close up of his face with the makeup on, it's like I can see through that makeup so clearly. I can see John Wayne Gacy's face. For me, he's not hiding himself with this makeup. I mean, I can literally see him through this. I mean, it's like it's not enough to hide who or what he was. It just adds to like this freak trying to, just trying to hide, be a master of disguise, which to me he wasn't. He was just a freak of nature.
Yeah, he had very prominent eyebrows. I mean, even as
that big, huge red smile.
Yeah, well, just like when I'm picturing John Wayne Gacy's face, the eyebrows are what pop out to me because it's almost like he's in a constant scowl, and they look. Yeah, they look devilish themselves. It's for me, the clown persona, and I'm going to be really frank, and you can still be Mike, but I'm going to be frank.
All right.
Bada bing. The clown thing is, to me, overplayed when it comes to John Wayne Gacy, because I think too many people believe that he used this persona to kind of like cover up who he really was. Right. He used this persona as a disguise. He used this to lure little kids to their dooms, and that's not.
Yeah, but he denied doing that, though.
Well, I don't think that there's any real evidence that he did. He did. It was a legit side job of his.
Yeah. He talked about that. He loved doing it. He loved clowning.
Which,
using that term just as a career term, it just bothers me. He was, it's called clowning.
Clown. Ew.
But but
Mike's got the shivers. I can just see him.
Yeah. But in an interview that I was watching with him, he said, because he was asked if he used that as, any kind of a lure, and he said no. It's like he really enjoyed doing that. He felt like he could just let loose or be another character, but he only did it like twice a month.
Right. He said it relaxed him. That's what
it relaxed him. Yes.
Yeah.
And he also said, it's in that interview that I saw, he actually said, I would play tricks on them and they would love it, but not like using the handcuffs or anything on them.
Yeah. Sure.
But he did. That's one of the things in the tricks that he played on the little kids that he said they loved, would, get the handcuffs slipped on them or tie their hands, and you can't get out of this.
Yeah.
He did that with little kids, and the same thing that he did with his victims.
Right.
He with the trust they had in him, he got them to let me show you this trick. And if he got the handcuffs on them,
you were gone.
They were dead at that point.
Absolutely.
Already. And if he didn't get the cuffs on him, they got away.
Yeah, he had that trick down, man, and half the time, one of the things he loved doing, he'd perform the trick himself. He'd bring, this is generally speaking what he did. He would, bring his victims back to his house. He'd usually ply them with drugs or alcohol or whatever. And they're always younger boys. Yeah. Young boys, teenagers.
Young boys or young men.
Yeah, yeah. Why is this say that the meeting's going to run out in 9 minutes?
Ooh,
that's not right. Well, hey, Mike, let's dive into the meat of this because I'm just getting going on this. So I'm going to pause right now. I'm going to end this call and then call you back.
Okay.
I don't know why this is doing this. Zoom better not be making me pay for this crap because that's going to make me mad.
Yeah.
So hold on, boys and girls.
Return.
We shall return. We're going to time travel. I'm going to call Mike back during our time traveling excursions, and we shall dive into the psycho world, the psychotic realm that Mr. John Wayne Gacy dwelled in. Don't go anywhere. And we have returned after yet another successful time traveling excursion. Okay, Mike, as I was saying, hopefully we don't have the time limit on us again.
Yeah.
After luring his victims in, these young boys, young teenagers, young men, oftentimes, he would, they'd get the free drugs, the free booze from Mr. John Wayne Gacy, and John would eventually say, hey, I want to perform a trick, this handcuff trick. And he'd say, he'd put the handcuffs on himself, and he would turn away, kind of hide what he was doing, and then all of a sudden, bam, magic, he would free himself from the handcuffs, and he'd say, there is a trick to it. Now, do you want to try it? I'll show you how it's done. And unfortunately, a lot of these young men, they totally innocent, totally, they're not, suspecting anything. Yeah, sure, why not? We're having a good time. Get the handcuffs put on him, and then at that moment, John would basically, not that he wasn't evil already, but he would give him that stare, and he says the key or the trick, the answer to the trick is you need a key. And he had the key. And then it was, all downhill from
right.
there.
And then after he'd have them trapped in the handcuffs, he would put a rope around their neck, a type of noose with a knot in it, and he would put a stick in there and turn it and slowly tighten it.
Yep.
Very slowly tightening it, just part of the torture that he would start with these guys.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he used to make it seem like he was more trustful, that they felt more comfortable with him, is when he would get them to his house, he would actually show a picture of him with Rosalind Carter.
Right.
And oh, look at here. I mean,
former President Jimmy Carter's wife, because John liked to think of himself as kind of a, not a high roller, but he definitely portrayed himself as an aspiring big guy in town type thing. He had all the connections. He had all the politicians on his side.
Yeah, the politicians, the whole clown thing. a successful businessman, married, children, which helped him get away with things as long as they did, because, people would complain about, John Wayne Gacy. It's like, oh, he did this or that. And it's like, the police or whatever start looking into his background. It's like, oh, this couldn't be.
You can't. Yeah, this. You must be referring to someone else. Yeah,
right. I mean, looking at all these wonderful things he does in his life, but I mean, he was arrested in 1964 for his first assault on a child.
Is that the sodomy charge you're referring to?
The sodomy, the oral sodomy charge.
Yeah, with an underage kid. I believe the child was 15 when he was 26, if I recall correctly on that one. And he was sentenced to 10 years at like kind of essentially a reform. I don't know if you can't even call it a prison, but he got out only after a year and a half because he was a model prisoner, inmate, whatever you want to call him.
He was what he portrayed himself as, or what he wanted to.
Yeah, well, and he, like I said, he was the big guy around town. He'd walk into a bar and people would say, "John," everyone would gravitate towards him. And eventually when, and we'll get to this later on, when he was the prime suspect after the Robert Peace disappearance, and the police really started narrowing down on John Wayne Gacy to the point where they set a 24-hour patrol on him that would follow him everywhere that he went. He couldn't go anywhere without police behind him, trailing him.
And he knew that, and he would walk by the cop car and say, "Hi, guys, just going to the store."
And they'd lead him to bars, and they'd all go in the bars, and they sat there, and they'd drink together, the cops and John. And he'd sit there, and he'd put on this big show, and he'd say, I know you guys are following me. I know you have the job to do, but I'm just telling you right now, I've got someone on my side he could blow you away at any moment if you do anything. He's full of shit and stuff, but he's telling the cops that he's got his own guys behind who's backing him up, and he'd lead them on all night chases. They'd hit every bar in town, every stop, and he eventually lost it though, because even if you were innocent, which he obviously wasn't, even if you were innocent, wouldn't you go nuts, Mike, if you were constantly trailed by authority figures?
It would get on the nerves, and it finally did with him until that was his undoing.
It was
when he lost it on that last time, going by the cops and going off on him that time. That was the end of that.
Oh, there's, we have such limited time here. We highly encourage you guys. There is one thing if you want kind of like the Cliff Notes version of the John Wayne Gacy story. You can watch that 3-part series on Netflix, the Conversations with the Killer, the John Wayne, the taped conversations with John Wayne Gacy. It's utterly fascinating, Mike. I know you need to watch that too. It's creepy and disturbing, but it's fascinating. A book that I happen to have listened to 3 times now, and it's like I need to stop listening to it, is called Killer Clown. It's written by Terry Sullivan, who was the lead prosecutor in the Gacy case and one of the investigators in the Gacy case. Lurid details just fill that book, and it's disturbing, and you feel icky when you listen to it. But
I'm still trying to get Bundy's face out of my mind when I close my eyes.
I know, I got you. So some of the brief facts. John Wayne Gacy was eventually convicted of murdering 33 people, 33 young men and boys. I believe, Mike, 26 of those victims were found in the crawl space. 3 others were found on his property. I think one was in his shed. One was out under a cement slab where he was going to be putting in like a grill of some sort.
Yeah, 4 of them were found in the Des Plaines River.
Yes, the Des Plaines River is where he threw his final 4 victims, including Robert Peace, who was found in April later that year. He was arrested in December. And 4 months later, they finally found Robert Peace's body. It had finally risen to the surface of the river. The cold temperatures of the river unfortunately preserved his body so well that it didn't fill with gaseous, it didn't fill with the human gases that would make him bloat and float to the surface, because it was preserving his body. And so it took 4 months before that finally happened, and he finally rose to the surface, and they were able to find him and identify him.
Now that kind of sounds like something, let's see, I don't know why, and this is really sick in itself, and I'm not a sick man, but this popped in my head. It's like when you said boat and float, bloat and float. I was like,
I did.
it's like something you'd find on a menu. Like, I'll have the number 9, the bloat and float.
The bloat and float, and not necessarily in that order, right?
Sounds like a DQ brazier
Oh,
thing.
gross. No.
I'll have the bloat and the float after.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Good. Hey, come on up to the counter. I'll get you a bloat and float.
Bloat and floats. I like that.
Oh,
My gosh, yes. No,
Sick.
we're not being flippant by any means about
Yes, and 5 victims actually have not even been identified as of yet.
Yeah. Yep. I think
So
3 after the initial excavation. I think there were 8 who were unidentified, and they have been able to, through modern DNA
right, the
practices,
DNA. Yeah,
they've been able to identify, like you said, 3, but there's still 5 who.
and hopefully the 5 will be that give some families some closure. And horrible. Yeah.
Now, is there an aspect? And I want to get into the crawl space, Mike. We have to talk about the crawl
Yes.
space. Is there an aspect about John Wayne Gacy that, to you, that sets him apart from all other serial killers?
Oh, I don't know. Excuse me.
I mean, they're all similar, obviously, because they all deserve to burn in hell. But they all had their MO.
Yeah,
and
they all have their own personalities about what they've done. John Wayne Gacy, he, I don't know if he sets himself aside by he tries to, a lot of them talk about themselves in the third person, and he goes so far as to say that I have studied photographs of all of these people, meaning his victims, not ever saying people that he's killed, but and he said, I don't know any of them. I don't recognize any of them.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's familiar to me about any of them. I've known none of them. And for 12 years, I've been studying these people, and I've gone so far as to dig into their backgrounds of who they were and what they did for fun, where they hung out, and what they, digging into all of his victims' lives and finding every little aspect about it, which I wouldn't have let him do, because that, to me, it's just some sick thing on his mind that he's just continuing on with what he's done to these victims.
He's fantasizing in that manner. He's escaping, again, by learning about all these victims, and
saying that he knows none of them. That's bullshit to me.
It's almost like, it's almost like bringing him more joy somehow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm sure that he sees these victims as, in his mind, he's going, I remember that one. And I remember just how he twitched.
Oh, sure. Absolutely, man.
And he's living this stuff and loving it in his mind.
A sad fact about his final murder, and all of them are tragic. A sad fact about his final murder of 15-year-old Robert Peast, the one that ultimately brought him to justice, was after he had I keep thinking tourniquet, but it's not a tourniquet. There's a name for the type of noose he actually used around.
Yeah, it's just a simple scout knot, but he described it as a tourniquet because you twist it and twist it until it tightened.
Well, when he had Robert Peast to the point of where Robert knew that he was going to die, basically, and in tears, John Wayne Gacy's phone rang, and in the middle of strangling Robert Peast, he let him go, let Robert Peast fall to the ground, still being strangled, asphyxiated, while John just ho-hum nonchalantly walked to the kitchen and spoke on the phone to whomever it was. Yeah. And he says when he came back, Robert was dead.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, that's just what it was.
Yeah.
And John is so twisted too. He, in so many different ways, he blamed the victims. A lot of ways he said the victims killed themselves.
Right. Exactly.
Because go ahead, Mike.
He would describe them as just punk losers, gays, which he himself was gay, obviously, but he was a homophobic gay.
He was, absolutely. And you know what?
Yeah.
I brought this up with Bridget. John Wayne Gacy his father was a very strict person.
Called him a sissy all the time and really put him down all the time. And
allegedly, apparently, and more than likely, very abusive, and he was an alcoholic.
Sure.
And he emotionally, if anything, abused John Wayne Gacy. And John Wayne never, no matter what he did, he never ever lived up to what his father wanted him to be.
No matter what.
No matter what. And I was talking about this with Bridget the other day. And John was totally raised under the belief that homosexuality was terribly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when he comes to the realization that he himself is a homosexual, but yet he can't shed what he's been taught, he essentially starts hating himself, taking that inner hatred out on other homosexuals.
Right.
And believing he's doing the world a justice while at the same time getting his rocks off.
Yeah.
And he is so warped. He'd say, like, there's 3 types of sexuality. There's homosexuality, there's heterosexuality, there's bisexuality. No, there's 3 types of love. That's what he called it. He described it as love. And he says, but the way I look at it is though I'm not homosexual because I didn't love any of them. That's what he said. He said, I'm not homosexual because, it's just like masturbation. It's just like, you're doing something, there's no feeling, there's no love there. So he obviously did not think of his victims as anything other than objects. I mean, literally objects.
Just, that's right.
And
Inhuman.
Utterly.
They were inhuman.
So what I mentioned, what I mentioned to Bridget, though I'm finally getting there, is that do you think that, and I'm not making any excuses for John Wayne Gacy at all, no shape or manner at all, but if he was raised during a time when homosexuality, like nowadays, when homosexuality was widely accepted for, it's getting there. It's still looked down upon by far too many people.
Not enough, but it's
not enough.
Getting there yet.
It's getting there though. It's way better than it was in his day.
Right.
If he grew up in a time that was more accepting, would he have gone down that path? What do you think, Mike?
That's a good question. I think he was sick and twisted enough to where something was going to happen. I mean, I don't think that was the only reason that he did what he did.
Right. That wasn't the only catalyst.
But it was definitely a contributing factor for sure.
Yeah. It's impossible to answer. It's impossible to answer.
But who knows? Yeah, it's something to ponder.
Definitely. Okay, Mike, I want to get into the psychology of burying bodies up to the point where you literally run out of room in your crawl space. What is going on upstairs, Mike?
There's something there that I believe that made him feel that he was carrying on what he did. Let's keep them close. Let's keep them close. I mean, they're right there where they're hidden, they're just right under my feet. And even when he blew up at the cops and said, come in the house and look around, there's nothing to find. He was so confident in what he did that, it's probably part of a thrill for him to have them that close under his feet.
Yeah.
But even though the smell of rot was still permeating into the house, I mean, his wife at the time, kept asking, what's that smell? And he would say, well, it's like a dead animal got under the house or something. And then she started finding clothes and wallets from his victims in the house. And she would ask about that. And that's another thing, his victims' clothes and underwear that obviously didn't belong to him and their wallets in the house, keeping that stuff close and enough to where she found them. And then when she started asking about that, he would just tell her to mind her own business.
Yeah.
And then after that, she left, and thankfully she left him.
Even when he was, people faced him with that fact. He was like, why do you have this driver's license from a 16-year-old boy? Why do you have, all these little trinkets and stuff? And he literally would tell them, well, it came from some dead guy.
Yeah.
And I guess he's trying to come across as so flippant, kind of. That's like, but he's literally telling them the truth right there. It came from some dead guy, one of your victims, you asshole.
Part of all these things that should have put him away long before he was.
So
many things.
When the police first started, narrowing down on John Gacy, and the first time they visited him at his house when he was their lead suspect, he had quite literally just murdered Robert Peast the night before or 2 nights before.
Yeah.
And he was still in the house when the investigators were there. He shoved him up in the attic at that point. And he just sits there and casually talks to the investigators. He said that he was, such and such place because his uncle had died and he was at the hospital, and he's like, why can't you guys mourn the dead, respect the dead, because his family member just died. And he's being manipulative
Yep,
obviously.
very, yeah.
one thing that I had, one of his non sequiturs, stuff that just makes no sense. Like when we were talking about when his wife would notice odor, and they said, well, there must be a dead animal under there. And she at one point she said, well, I think there's a ton of dead rats or dead mice. There has to be dead mice. And but his non sequitur answer was, okay, well, I'll set traps. Well, what do traps matter if they're already dead there, John?
Sure. Yeah, he didn't think that one through.
No. And, we're going all over the place here. I realize that. But I want to get as much in as we can. When the investigators were at his house another time, it might have been that same night. No, it was a different night.
And one of them, second time they came, or the next time they came.
The next time they came, and one of them, they were trying to check out the house because they had heard about the first time they were there. They had seen this Motorola television in John's bedroom, and that had come up as matching a missing Motorola television
and a radio, and something else.
I mean, a bunch of odd things why, you have these and these have been reported missing, But anyhow, and so they needed to get in there to try and get the matching serial number, model number from this TV.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it matched this missing reported stolen TV, then they had more evidence right there. So when this investigator was trying to go and sneak into his bedroom to get a picture of that, to write down the model number, he kind of panicked and he saw one number and he got it down by memory. It wasn't well lit and he didn't want John to notice him. Long story short, when he ended up revealing the number to the other investigators, he had memorized the wrong number. And it didn't help him. But after that, after he left his room, he went to the bathroom, relieved himself in the bathroom, and when he flushed the toilet, the heater came on in the bathroom, and that's when he got nailed with this smell. But he initially thought that he goes, oh, well, he obviously has some sort of problem with his piping down there. There must be a leak where we're getting some gaseous kind of sewage type smells that are being sucked into the house.
There's a big difference between the smell of sewage and the smell of rotting dead people.
Yes, there is. There absolutely.
I know that smell of both.
And it's upon describing that smell to other investigators, they it really kind of irk their curiosity, or pique their curiosity, I should say, and they all started thinking about it. And I think they all realized that smell was something other than just sewage, like you just said.
Right.
Now, those bodies down there, that's also some form of possession, obviously. He doesn't want to get rid of them, kind of like you said, Mike. Now, which one thing that differs between Bundy and Gacy, Bundy thoroughly enjoyed returning to his victims' dead bodies a week after the event when they're already decomposing and still having his way with them.
Right.
As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, I don't think John, if he did, he never talked about it. I don't think he ever had sex with the dead bodies. Am I wrong?
I did come across a list of psychological diagnosis that he was diagnosed with.
Okay.
One of them was necrophilia.
Okay.
So that would say, he did.
Yes, that would say he did. Maybe I'm thinking that he always denied it. Well, he denied everything up until the last.
Did. Yeah, he did.
And he always backtracked though, Mike, because at other points he did confess. He did confess to his lawyer during one night when he was finally arrested, or before he was arrested, and he was a suspect. But he knew that the walls were caving in on him. He called in his lawyer and he laid it on him that he said that he has killed all these kids.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, he retracts all the stories. And then it gets through the defense where he said, well, he was insane. He was insane 33 times during his life, apparently, where he killed all these people and yada, yada, yada. And we won't get into the specifics of that. But it's as far as just the morbid nature of these rotting human corpses in the crawl space right below your feet. I mean, and this isn't like a basement that's 10 feet deep. This is a crawl space.
No, it's just a crawl space, yep.
Literally a crawl space. You have to walk around on your belly down there, basically crawl around on your belly. He had some of his younger co-workers, his employees, he'd hire them every now and then to come in and dig more holes in his crawl space, but he wouldn't tell them why. And he'd give them very specific locales as to where to dig. And if they started going astray from where he told them to, boy, oh boy, did they get it from Mr.
Well,
Gacy.
of course, because he didn't want them digging up bodies that were already down there.
Yep. One of the more descriptive and disturbing incidents is when one of the investigators who was brought in specifically to start digging when everything was starting to go down. He knew something was happening. He knew something was down there when one of the holes, by the way, he had a sump pump down there that was constantly running. And he always said that's half the problem because there's so much water down there. I mean, it was very moist. It was muck. It was just a complete, utter, disgusting mess.
Well, yeah, it's like your bodies start liquefying after.
Yes. Oh God.
Well,
that's one of
as part of their decomposure, decomposition.
There you go. Well, this digger, this investigator here, he said that the one thing that gave him an idea or gave him the motive to continue digging further in this one location is when his light passed over this little puddle of water, towards the edge of the foundation over there. He saw hundreds, if not thousands, of red jiggling little worms that were on the surface of the muck there that all immediately, when the light shone on them, they all just dove under the water.
Yeah.
And he says, what are they feeding on there? There's something under there.
There has to be something there.
And lo and behold, bam, that's where it all started. And
from one of the accounts that I read was when they actually came across this trap door that went down to the crawl space. I think it was in the kitchen or something.
Yes.
And
it was in a closet. It was in the closet.
The closet by the kitchen.
Yep.
Something like that. Anyway, this detective opened it and looked down there, and he told one of his people to go check it out down there. And this guy went down in there. He started crawling around, and the detective in the room standing by the opening said he heard the other detective down in the hole saying, "There are children down here."
Yep.
Yeah.
Not good. No, it's gosh, it's one of those. It's like a car wreck. You just don't want to look, but you can't help yourself. So this is like, I don't want to talk about it, but I can't help myself.
Well, it's one of those things in history that will never be forgotten. It'll never be totally buried, and it's things that we have to keep in the back of our mind over history to just know where we've come from, and hopefully we get past it and don't have this kind of thing. But I just think it's always going to be there. In one form or another, like when we were talking to Chris Jericho, and he was like, well, why is there not so many serial killers now compared to back then?
Yeah.
Is it because of technology that is so up on this stuff and they're caught easily? Was his thoughts, which makes total sense.
Oh, sure.
But I was like, well, yeah, but are there not any out there, or have they just not been caught yet? And they, basically what I was meaning is, do they keep up with technology? Do they keep one step ahead of it?
They're using technology to their advantage.
They're using, yes. And how many thousands of people a year in this country alone they disappear. They go missing and are never found. How many of those could be serial killer victims? It just goes on. And it could change with the times.
Yeah, we also, and Chris brought up a conversation he had with a psychologist that he brought up a good point where, there's still serial killers out there, but instead of killing 36 people over a decade like Bundy did, they go to Las Vegas and murder 40 people in the one night mass shooting.
Exactly.
It's that, and I kind of inferred, I said, it's that, I guess it goes for serial killers too. We're living in the age of instant gratification. It's like they can't, even serial killers need to do it all now.
Right.
Some gross facts, Mike. Some gross descriptions. I don't know why the hell I'm thinking about this. I think I have to talk about it so I can forget about it for a little bit. Like you said, a couple of the bodies, upon being exposed to air, you know what happens to those bodies after they've been buried under the dirt and the soil and muck for so long. One of the investigators said that upon being exposed to the air, the body immediately began to balloon, swell up, and he had to cut a hole into his abdomen to release the gas. Right. I cannot fathom that job. And being able to go home at night. And this was during the Christmas holiday season.
Yeah. It's such things that they would never forget. The worst that I've dealt with that is when a colostomy bag gets full of gas.
Oh my God.
To the point of bursting. And then you have to, how they say it, burp it.
Burp it. Oh, Lord Almighty.
It's like a huge bag of fart, but boy, it's a billion times worse.
Good golly, Miss Molly.
So if you think of gases like that, building up, and with heat, and then when it's exposed there, it gets to the point of it bursting.
God,
I can't imagine how much worse that would be. And when I've done this with colostomy bags, you have to clear the room, and on your way out, you spray whatever you have available.
I got the 9-minute warning again, Mike, but we're coming up on an hour anyway, so that'll work fine, I guess.
You better check into that.
This is irritating me because that's going to really screw up our length for our normal episodes here, or not our normal ones for. Maybe it won't because we've been splitting them into 2 parts anyways. But another quick gross fact. Sorry, we have 9 minutes to go.
Okay.
When one body where they were really, really struggling to remove it from the dirt, they just couldn't move it at all. They were able to, I think the head may have actually fallen off. They were able to remove the skull, but they couldn't get anything else out of it. And the one investigator said, well, I just took a deep breath. I mean, he had gloves on. That's about it.
Sure.
And he reached underneath the body, the back of the ribs, and it still had flesh on it, putrefied flesh on it. And he said, I just had to stick my fingers, shove them through the flesh, the remaining putrid flesh, to get them in between the back rib cages, and then I just heaved, and it just came out with a suction sound. And,
it's horrifying.
I just can't imagine.
You'd have to have like hazmat suits on.
They didn't, Mike.
Like that.
They didn't do that.
They didn't, but nowadays they would. I mean, you have people
100%.
that they are totally covered, and I still wouldn't be able to handle it. It was mentioned in that book that I've listened to that it might come across as callous to some people, but these officers, these investigators, this excavation team, they were doing this over a course of days and days, and they were so emotionally moved by this. They all resorted to sick, morbid senses of humor or acts of humor just to try and keep themselves sane. Yeah, it's a defense mechanism that kicks in.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And when the news teams got wind of what was happening, they were there every night when they were pulling out the bodies. I mean, night after night after night, it was on the news. 6 more bodies removed from the Gacy murder house, 5 more tonight, 6 more tonight. I can't imagine. Like, that was 1978, so I was 2 years old, so I absolutely have no recollection of it. But if you were there and you were aware of what was going on, perhaps watching on the news, that's something that will be embedded in your brain, in your mind forever. I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
That's something that unforgettable in a terrible way.
No, I was 16, but I swear I must have totally missed every bit of it on the news.
Like you said, you were probably at that roller skating rink that we took the kids to the other day.
Got stoned, went to the roller skating rink.
I was joking with Bridget about that too. It's like, man, I'm looking around this. It's like, yep, this totally has a 60s, 70s vibe to it still. I can just picture a long-haired Mike standing over in the corner over there with his
parted down the middle and feathered on the sides. My hair way down,
tinted eyeglasses on, and standing. With your hands in your pockets, is leaning on the rails. Taking in the scene, dancing under the disco ball. Woohoo!
Oh yeah, the disco ball that was there.
Gosh, Mike, especially with the interruption of this time limit thing, I feel like we didn't get anywhere near I wanted to, but we're going to have to call it short here. We got 5 minutes to go.
All right.
Maybe we did okay. How did we do?
I think we did great. I wish we could have dug into more because there's so much more we could dig into on this.
Well, how about
part two?
There's a part two. There's always a part
done
two.
with the nightmare yet.
Well, is there anything? We have 6 minutes left, Mike. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything else that you wanted to say that we didn't get to?
We talked about the evil of Ted Bundy and the demonic and the whatever went along with that. What Gacy did was every bit as horrifying, torturous, and disgusting and evil. But I still have to say that the true evil still belongs to Ted Bundy.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's an awesome tease for everyone to tune into the Jericho episode.
Absolutely. I mean, the level of just evil and the possibility of a demonic entity or whatever. I mean, Gacy, he, like I said, everything just as evil, bad, grotesque, torturous, horrifying, and sick. But it was more of him and what he wanted to do, and a psychopathic thing. Yeah. That pure evil. And he was so. I don't feel that with him. It's just the sick and twisted.
He is the pure. He had literally no feelings, John Wayne Gacy.
Right.
I mean, they were literally just objects. He saw nothing wrong with what he was doing. He saw nothing wrong with just shoving them underneath his basement floor in the crawl space, or underneath the kitchen floor in the crawl space. Let's not forget too, Mike, that not only did he do this to 33 victims who died, he did this to countless people who escaped, countless people, who never came forth. He loved torturing people, and sometimes he'd do it all night. He'd keep them trapped, tied up literally, and he was doing awful things to them.
And got away with it.
And got, raping them with objects, not just himself, strangling them to the point of passing out. And they wake up again, and he'd do it all over again. He tortured people, and then he let them go. And they'd never tell anybody because they were so ashamed. They were so embarrassed about what happened. Yeah.
I'm not taking away any of the hideous.
No, I know
anything from John Wayne about John Wayne Gacy, because, if evil, is anything, that it is evil what he did. But like I said, that dark entity, evil, demonic, that still belongs to Bundy.
No, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. Well, what about you? Last words, if you got time.
Well, I feel like I have to take a bath after talking about this guy. I'm going to kind of repeat myself again. I get the imagery, and I get the connection between the clown. Everyone goes with the clown. It's the clown. He's the killer clown, killer clown, killer clown. But again, I think that's been overplayed. It wasn't a minor part of his personality. It wasn't a minor part of his life by any means. But I really think it's been overdone, the connection.
Right.
It's not like he was dressed up as a psycho clown who lured these people in his house and somehow got away with it. No, it was the clown wasn't itself connected to all the murders, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Right. But I do have one question.
Yeah.
If you had a chance to own one of his paintings, would you have it and have it in your house?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I said the same thing to myself earlier.
One thing one thing that irritated me as well. Thank you for bringing that up. One of his paintings, you could obviously tell if you follow Bob Ross and his paintings, and you can tell, you recognize the wet on wet painting, the oil painting style and stuff, and from beginners on up. He obviously was a fan of Bob Ross, and I cannot imagine what Bob Ross would think, knowing that someone like John Wayne Gacy is learning from Bob Ross and attempting to duplicate.
Right. Yes, poorly. Because John Wayne Gacy, some of his paintings were those outdoor scenes with the lake and the
you can absolutely tell, though. There was one in particular. Happy
little trees.
There's one in particular that I know is a Bob Ross painting because I myself did that as one of my first paintings I ever tried to do. It's the same. Right. It's like a little campfire with the colors, the lake, the shoreside. It was what I know. John was watching Bob Ross, and he painted that thing, and so I'm like, oh my God.
But what the attention is put on are his creepy ass clown paintings. And,
of course, yes.
And they do fetch money. at auction and people buying, and you can buy prints for them online.
I don't know about that.
I noticed for like $30 or whatever.
We got a minute to go here. So I get it. And so I don't want to be hypocritical because someone like Zach Bagans buys a lot of like Ted Bundy stuff to put at
But
at
he's
his
got
museum.
yeah.
So I guess, if you want to buy them, more power to you. I for some reason it bothers me thinking that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because the idea of a dead serial killer has sold more paintings than I ever will. Maybe that bothers me.
Yeah. And Zach Bagans in that episode held a slice of John Wayne Gacy's brain in his hand.
Right. Well, what a way to end, Mike.
Yeah.
We're coming up on an hour exactly. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We might have to dive into this for part 2 for sure. Mike, until then, what do our Patreon pals need to do?
After all of this, sick and twisted, just try and peace out.